Good afternoon, folks. This is Robert Chappell, Executive Editor at Madison365 with your daily update for Wednesday, June 23rd. Today, we'll talk through some COVID numbers real quick. We'll get to some local news, and we'll keep it pretty short today because the COVID news is really very simple. That it's been kind of the same for the past several days, which is good, right? No news is good news on this stuff. Again, today, fewer than 100 new cases. Yesterday, we had 78 new cases out of about 1,250 new test results. Today, we have 96 new cases out of 1,850 positive test or new test results, rather. That's about a 5% positive rate on those new results. Again, those are all new tests. Either somebody being tested negative for the first time or somebody who's been tested negative before and now being tested positive for the first time. So it's a much smaller population than the overall population of people who are being tested. But to have only 96 new cases is very good news out of that. The overall positive test rate for the past 7 days, which is of all the tests, many thousands of tests in the past 7 days. A lot of folks are getting tested every day, healthcare workers, etc. Of those, 0.7% were positive. That's the same as it was yesterday. That's an extraordinarily low number. That's a number that indicates we have it under control right now in Wisconsin, which is great news. We are seeing still pretty low levels of vaccination happening. Where my spreadsheet go here? Sorry. Only about 3,900 doses given in the past. No, that's not right. About 12,000, 13,000 doses given in the past 24 hours. That puts the daily average at just over 10,000 for the past 7 days. Not enough. I mean, we know that actually, I'm sorry, no, it's 8,700 per day in the past 7 days. That's really low. That's as low as it's been since that's the lowest that the average has been since, let's see, January 7th. January 7th was the last time it was below 9,000 per day. So, I mean, the level of vaccine that we have right now, which is, we got about 49.8% of Wisconsinites have one dose. 45.5 have completed the cycle. The series of shots are fully immunized. That level of vaccine is not enough for herd immunity, right? It's not enough to eradicate the virus. It is enough to have an impact, right? So that's what we're seeing. I think part of what we're seeing in the numbers, in these really good low COVID spread numbers, it owes itself in part to the level of vaccine that we do have, right? So it's not the end of the world that we're getting a low number of vaccines. Now, the problem with the vaccines, the bigger problem, is the racial disparity in vaccinations, in that people of color are just getting vaccinated at a much lower rate than white people. And that leaves certain communities more vulnerable than others. So we've always seen a disproportionate impact on communities of color from COVID. And we're going to continue to see that. We might even see it more disproportionately if those communities are less vaccinated than the rest of us. That's how viruses work. It's how numbers work. So we'll need to keep working to get those numbers up in those communities. And the state is working on it. We're trying to help out as best we can. But it's a matter of access. It's a matter of trust. It's a matter of transportation. It's a matter of language. A lot of things, a lot of factors. But it's the overall picture right now is very good. I think I'm feeling pretty relaxed. I think we're still having, there's still social issues, mental health issues, economic issues that are all going to continue to fall out for the next year or two, probably, at least. But in terms of the virus itself, it's going okay right now in Wisconsin. That's all I can tell you. We will get a we will very likely have a update on variants tomorrow. And that Delta variant is the one that everybody's got their eyes on now, which seems to be not only more contagious but more severe also. And there's some concern that it might be able to evade vaccines, right? And that people who have been vaccinated might actually still be able to contract that Delta variant. We haven't seen that really in Wisconsin yet. We last week we had 35 cases of that variant identified in the entire state, so that's not going to make an impact. We will see tomorrow whether that's gone up or not, because they're giving us variant data every Thursday afternoon. All right, so we will take a short pause here. That's basically the COVID news for you. We'll take a short break. We'll hear from our sponsor, UW Health, and we'll be right back with more state, local, and national news, and we'll preview a little bit of sports action as well. Don't scroll away. Give me 30 seconds and come right back.
Here in the Midwest, community is important.
Having a healthcare system that's looking out for us,
that's actively addressing the racial disparities in healthcare is important.
When we can get good quality care, we can do more. We can achieve more.
We can be the kind of community we want to be, and that's really important.
UW Health. Remarkable medicine. Remarkable care.
All right. Let's start with some state news today. The state legislature has passed a bill that would penalize municipalities, cities and villages that, or actually, well, cities, because it applies only to cities with a police department of 30 people or more, 30 officers or more, which is basically Madison, Milwaukee, Green Bay, probably Kenosha, Racine, sort of the larger cities. But what they're trying to do is, if you move funding from the police department to other social services, like if you want to try to create a mental health response team so that you don't have armed officers responding to mental health crises, so that the police can focus on crime and not mental health, that you have actual mental health professionals doing the mental health, so the police can focus on the crime. The state legislature wants to penalize you for that. Of course, these will not take effect. Governor Tony Evers will veto these bills if it even passes the Senate. But that's where the Assembly is right now. They're trying to punish cities for trying to spend money smarter, right? Locally here, we had Rob Dees on yesterday, but I want to point out that we have a story. We had Rob Dees on yesterday. If you missed it, he was also, I put that interview also on the podcast this morning. So go to find It's Only 10 Minutes, wherever you get your podcast. Just search It's Only 10 Minutes. Listen to today's episode. Rob Dees is on there. He has set up this free concert series to kind of celebrate coming back from COVID, right? So starting next Friday, July 2nd, it's going to have a free concert at the top of State Street in Madison every other Friday throughout until into October. They're going to have booths with small business owners and visual artists, and it's just a time to kind of emerge from this pandemic and come together, because we spent a year and a half not being able to go out, and music artists and performing artists, visual artists, small businesses all suffered. So they're trying to inject some life back into those sectors as well as just into the community. So go to Madison365.org right now, find that picture, click it. You get the whole lineup of every date, who's performing which date. So you can put those on your calendar. Don't miss it. It should be a really cool series. It's called Mad Lit. And it should be a lot of fun. Turning now to national news, Interior Secretary Deb Haaland has announced a federal investigation into the Native American boarding schools that back in the 19th and 20th centuries, there was an attempt at these boarding schools to assimilate indigenous children into European culture, right? I mean, it's not an attempt. They basically succeeded in doing it. It almost succeeded in kind of drowning out indigenous cultures altogether. Fortunately, they're, didn't work completely. And we have, and we still, and we're now, all of our indigenous nations are working really hard to preserve and reclaim their culture. And but we know now that there have been several of these boarding schools in Canada where the remains of hundreds of children have been discovered recently. Like children went to these schools and died, and nobody ever had a funeral for them or anything. Not saying necessarily that happened in the United States, but it's worth looking into. Right. So Deb Holland is going to lead that effort. She, incidentally, as you're probably aware, is the first Native American Indigenous person to hold a cabinet secretary position in the federal government. And she was one of the first Indigenous women elected to Congress just a few years ago. So she'll be undertaking that investigation in the coming months. Also today, we learned that civil rights leaders are organizing another march on Washington. There was a march on Washington last year in August, seeking police reform and other things. It's going to be another march on Washington this August. The announcement comes a day after the Senate Republicans blocked the For the People Act, which was a bill that would ensure that voting could remain easy. Right? There's a lot of states out here trying to make it harder to vote. And this federal legislation would sort of curtail some of those state-by-state efforts. And the Senate Republicans blocked it. And in response, several civil rights organizations have announced another march in Washington for this coming August. More details around that from CNN on Madison365.org right now. All right, so to keep it short, that's the news for today. One more thing I want to mention is the FAM. Mentioned a couple times on here. If you have supported us in the past, and many of you have, and we're deeply grateful, we are a nonprofit newsroom. Right, we run on donations because we never wanted to make anybody pay for the news. But being informed is like kind of an important, just a fundamental right for you, and we're happy to provide that service to keep you informed and to amplify your voices and to, do what we do. And it costs money for us to do what we do, right? The journalism you see on Madison365.org is done by professionals who get paid to do it. So there's a conundrum there, right? We're spending money out, but we got to bring some more money in. So to support what we do, if you could, like if we did have to charge you, could you afford it? Could you afford a $5 a month subscription? Would you pay $5 a month for this? Would you pay $10 a month? Would you pay $25 a month? Would you pay enough to help other people be able to see it if they to get the news if they couldn't afford it? If so, you can be a member of the FAM. Just go to Madison365.org/thefam, and you can choose the level that's right for you. You get some perks, right? You get some cool stuff, and most of all, you get to support us and Madison365, and you get to help us keep the news free for everybody in the whole community. So, all right, that's enough of that pitch. Thanks very much. One other thing I'll mention: watch our Facebook feed tonight at 7:30. We have a video that we put together with. I mentioned the new News Lab, this big collaborative project we're working on up in the Northeast Wisconsin, doing really good journalism, really important journalism, funded by Microsoft. We actually had a whole like a Zoom thing just to kind of announce it, talk through what local journalism means, why local journalism is really important, why Microsoft and the community foundations up there are supporting this effort, and what how and kind of how local journalism is going to look in the future. It's really an important time right now. So at 7:30 tonight, we'll have that video up on our Facebook feed as well as on Fox Valley 365, which is our site that covers Northeast Wisconsin. So take a look at that. You got representatives from Microsoft. You got representatives from several different newsrooms. It's a good thing if you're interested in journalism. If you're like me, like kind of just journalism media nerd, it's a good thing to watch. Also tonight, Game 1, the Eastern Conference Finals, Bucks versus Hawks. Very nervous and excited about that. And Forward Madison takes on Greenville in a huge match for those two clubs, both of them coming off a loss. Both have definite thoughts of making playoffs, of winning this league. So it'll be a big clash tonight. That kicks off at 6 p.m. on ESPN Plus, and you can follow us on Twitter. Just find Madison365 on Twitter, and we'll be posting updates on that game as it goes along. All right, I promise that's all I have for you. Thanks very much. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you tomorrow.
This is 365 Media.